Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's video. In today's video, I just wanted to kind of talk about Bitcoin and a few of the key moving averages that we got and what kind of Bitcoin's looking at in the bigger term time frame. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you guys subscribe, hit up that like button, and let's get busy and let's talk about some charts. So you guys can see that Bitcoin really hasn't done anything the last 6 months. It's kind of just been chilling, right? We've been up here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks up in what I like to call no man's land. To me, this is more so of just, an area where Bitcoin doesn't really had any price action historically, and we're just kind of hanging out in here, right? If we, I like to kind of compare this to 2019. Before we jump into the moving averages, I want to kind of show you guys where I think that we are in this so-called no man's land. So if you look back in here for Bitcoin, right, back in December of 2020, you guys can see that Bitcoin pretty much blasted through this range. And what this range is pretty much between 32,000 and about 24,000. You can see back in 2020, we pretty much just blasted straight through this range, right? There was no price action in here. It was just kind of boom, right? Now, if we go back and look what happened after that, you can see we kind of found a pretty big support here, right? 1, 2, right? A little bit above this for the pre-Luna consolidation period, right? When Do Kwon said, listen, I'm about to buy some Bitcoin, and he dumped. Well, Luna dumped, but yeah, that's besides the point. But we found support on here again, and that was kind of like the bear market lows before we capitulated back down to our bottom, right? And then when we capitulated back down, it was pretty much straight down, not really a lot of price action in here. So you guys can see that like this range in here is just no man's land, right? To me, it's like, okay, we get back above 32 on a weekly close. We're looking really, really freaking good, going up to our ultimate targets of like 42,000 to 48,000, which we did like in 2019, right? And then to the downside, it's kind of like, okay, 24K is our previous tops on the weekly closes, kind of in no man's land in here. Now, let me go back to 2019 before we get into like the bull market support band and the 200-week moving average and stuff like that, right? Let's go back to 2019. So in 2019, very similar price action, right? We had the bull market. We blasted straight through this little range, right? Between about 6,000 and about 4,500, right? We blasted right through that range right in here. But then what did we do, right? We found support, we found support, we found support, we found support. Just like what we did in this last market, right? Bear market, we just kept finding support until we finally smashed through. And then once again, right, there was no price action in here. We just kind of dumped straight through like a slice of butter on some bread, right? Now, if you look at what price action did, once again, we went sideways for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in here before we moved on up, right, in this little range in here. And that's very similar to what Bitcoin's doing now. It's just kind of consolidating in no man's land before, in my opinion, we get that next leg up to the upside. Could take a little bit in here, and I'll show you guys what I mean. But eventually, I do think we get that move up to the upside. It's just a matter of when. Now, if we look back, what we did in 2019, right? You guys can see we got back above the bull market support band here. And we've been talking about how Bitcoin, I expect Bitcoin to go back up to the 618 Fibonacci, kind of like how it did in 2019. But we got back above the bull market support band, and that was the key ticket to like, all right, let's freaking go. We're going up to the upside. Let's freaking rock and roll. But we still kind of waited for it to catch up to us in this zone right here, right? Very similar to where we are now, right? Where, the bull market support band was way down here, right? When we first moved up. And now we've gone sideways once, let it catch up to us. We back tested it. And now the bull market support band, which is coming up like this, which historically you want to hold when Bitcoin's in a bullish market, is starting to get back above that 24,000 region. The bottom of it is at 24,200 now, and the top range is at 25,100. So now we've kind of let this catch up, and there certainly could be in here where Bitcoin either just kind of goes sideways and waits for this to come back up to us, or Bitcoin gets a big flush, right? Get everyone super, super bearish. We flush out. We even back test this area, maybe even wick a little bit lower than this. But as long as we close above that on any type of sideways action or wick to the downside, as long as we get a weekly close above this, I would expect a bounce. Very actually similar to, not necessarily what we did back in 2019, but like 2020. I don't expect a big move up like this. But you guys can see we did do one consolidation, right? Let the bull market support band catch up. We got a pump. and then we basically waited for it to come back up again, and we got a bounce off that before getting that next leg up to the upside. Now, that's very similar to what we're doing now, which, in my opinion, we're kind of following that same game plan, which, you know, what we doing here, who knows, right? We're all guessing. You know, we all act like, you know, we're super, super smart, and we're going to act like what Bitcoin's going to do in this range. Whatever we do, right? Whether we do dump and back test it, whether we do just go sideways for months and let this come up and then bounce, or whether we just bounce straight up from here, right? Ultimately, I do expect it to resolute to the upside. As long as we stay above like 24,000 on a weekly close, it's all good. Now, I think what we have a little bit differently this time than previous times is if we bring up the 200-week moving average. You know, this is something that was sort of interesting back in the day, but now if we bring up the 200-week moving average, which is a blue line here, where we actually dumped below the 200-week moving average for the first time in this bear market, which was like, oh shit, Bitcoin's never done that. We're dropping below the 200-week moving average. That's not good. This time, we've found resistance on this, right? After jumping back below, right? So resistance, but obviously back in March, we were able to get a big weekly closure above this. And now we've kind of closed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks above the 200-week moving average. So another point where this is coming around 26K. Another point where is if Bitcoin goes sideways for a while or does see a little bit of a drop, should act as some support. And you guys can see, like, just kind of what I'm looking at here is how much shit, right? Excuse my language, but how much, like, I guess I should say crap, not shit, over here on YouTube. YouTube, I'm sorry, man. But, you know, how much stuff is in here, right? The bull market support band coming in around 25K. The 200-week moving average coming around 26K, right? The previous weekly wick highs at 25K. The previous week closes at 24K. How much stuff that would act as hypothetical support is in that 24 to 26K range? And that's why I would expect us to hold that before a next leg up to the upside. Doesn't mean we have to come down to those levels, right? We certainly could just bounce and bounce back up to the highs from here. But, you know, a back test of the 200-week wouldn't be the most horrible thing at this point. And honestly, the back test of the bull market support band, we've done that in the past before moving up. Like right here, we talked about. We back tested it right here. And we've done many, many different things. Now, the last moving average that we can sort of talk about here is the 50 moving averages, which I like to know is like, okay, Bitcoin's above the 50-week moving averages, and it holds above it for a significant amount of time. I expect us to be in some sort of bullish trend, and that's been the case since we broke above 25K. Now, we've kind of been hanging out in this region for quite a bit, as we have an ambulance in the background. I apologize, guys. There's some stuff going on outside that I don't want to know about over here, if you know what I mean. Here comes the ambulance. It's coming in hot and heavy right now. It's always got to be when I'm making a video, you know. It's never when it's never at any other point. You know what I mean? That's always how it is. But anyways, guys, as the ambulance sort of slowly drives away here, that's absolutely insane, man. You can't make this stuff up. It's got to be right over here during the video. But you know, as we sort of move on here, the 50-week moving averages, which historically, when Bitcoin gets back above those, that's been freaking awesome, right? That you know, you look back in the past. You know, we would get back above it in 2020. That was a huge signal for us to continue up into a full-blown bull market. We got back above it in 2019. That was obviously the big signal to come up to the 618 Fibonacci level, which I think we're more so in that time frame right now, right? And then obviously we go back to, say, back to 2014 or 2015, which we got back above it here. That was kind of the signal for that bull market. And we can go back in the past, even all the way back down to 2012. When we got back above it here, obviously we went slightly below, but you know, that was a very early time period. But ultimately, that did kind of send us into a full-blown bull market eventually. But you know, that's a huge signal, and that as well, right, just adds confluence to us. And that's funny enough, coming in right here, you know, between 22K and about 26K, a big range right now, but still gives us indication of how much more support is in that, you know, like I said, kind of 24K to 26K region back down here. So once again, we could certainly come and back test this. It's going to be about holding that before the next run up to the upside. And I guess the point of this video I wanted to make today, guys, is just to show you kind of what's happened in the past when we've gotten back above these and when we kind of gotten rejected from these and previous bear markets and things like that. Like for the 50 week, right? We dumped below it in the bear market here. We back tested it, capitulation down, got back above. Usually that historically indicates a run to the upside, right? Same thing back here in 2017, right? Where we had a bear market, we got rejected from it, capitulation, we got back above. That signaled an uptrend. We go back to say 2014, same deal, right? We started the bear market, rejected, right? Capitulation, got back above it, signaled the uptrend, right? So all this stuff is very similar to what Bitcoin always does. It tends to not do the same thing all the time, but it tends to rhyme, okay? The price action is not going to be one-to-one. It's not going to be the same every time, but it's going to be similar, right? And it has been similar so far this time. And I have no reason to believe it's going to be anything different. Now the key is on this consolidation, do we backtest this region? If we do, we want to hold this region, but there's a lot of support there. Or do we just kind of rise up to the upside, right? I guess the way I would be super bearish is if Bitcoin closed like a weekly candle below the 50 week. So if Bitcoin closed the weekly below like 22K, that would probably be like, all right, Bitcoin's booking a little shady right now, right? So we don't want Bitcoin to go below 24K. But other than that, I mean, guys, if I bring up all these important moving averages again, right? 20-week moving average. All right, this is the 50-week moving averages. We bring up the 20-week moving averages. Look, they're in the same spot. We bring up the 200-week MA. Look, man, look at all this stuff coming in right around the same region. Very telling here, where this is going to kind of be the test. If Bitcoin comes back down to these regions, holds and bounces, we are in really, really good shape right now. If Bitcoin dumps and closes the weekly all the way below these, we're probably not in the best shape. And then everything we've been talking about, probably we have to reset that and talk about a little bit down the road, right? So good stuff going on right now. I think we're at a kind of a boring time in the market. It's a good time to kind of sit back and sort of reflect where we are, zoom out to the weekly, zoom out to the monthly. Don't be changing your biases every single day. Because to be honest, the last 2 months, I mean, ever since like March 13th, nothing's really gone down, right? So let's continue to, sit back and just relax and let time go by as we got that infamous halving coming up in April of 2024, which is, once again, less than a year away, coming up pretty freaking quick, which is pretty exciting, guys. All right. So I'll catch everyone later. Have a fantastic day. Like I said, if you liked the video, make sure you like. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next video over here on this channel. Peace out, fellas. Later.